Upon logging into CrashPlan's unified interface, you start with the dashboard view. We break down all the different components that a customer is licensed for. In this environment, I have SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, and my Blue Vault components. Blue Vault is our endpoint and server data protection. If I was licensed for protection of Gmail and Google Drive, that would be displayed here as well. Within each of the components, you are able to get a high-level overview of the environment, give you that bird's eye view. For example, when I'm looking at my Exchange environment, I could see how many active users we have currently in protection, how much data is being protected, is any data not being protected. If there happen to be any backup jobs that we're running at the moment, you'd be able to see them or the restore jobs running right here. This is also the location where you could drill in on the reports. CrashPlan has a policy-driven management console. I'm going to jump into this one Exchange policy and show some of the common features that we could set up. Of course, we need to create the schedule. So we're very flexible on how aggressive you may or may not want to get with your data protection jobs. You might be okay with one Exchange backup per day, no problem. But if you wanted to add multiple schedules multiple times, we would just create a new schedule in here, and you could add as many types of times where you want the data protection jobs to occur. Now, there's some additional options within the policies for Exchange below. We could limit the size of attachments if your organization wanted to mandate that no attachments over 10 megs were allowed. You can set that up here and also define how long the data protection, the deleted items will be retained in the backup. We can also pick and choose which locations within Exchange we could protect. If you have in-place archives, we can grab that mailbox. If you wanted to grab contacts, tasks, calendar items, it's as simple as toggling this between enable or disabled. We could pick and choose the location of the folder structure within Exchange. For example, you might want to exclude the spam and junk email folders like I have here and grab everything else. But we have a really great feature called attachment archiving or capacity savings. What this does is it actually frees up space, cleans up the attachments out of your live Exchange online mailbox. So typically it's the attachments that take up space. So if we have this enabled, what happens is we run a backup job. We find all of the new data that's there. We grab it. Of course, we will compress it, deduplicate it, and encrypt it so that is stored securely and efficiently. And at the end of that job, we look and see if this is enabled and if it matches this criteria. So if this is enabled, what we'll see is any attachments that are over a year old, we have that copy, it's already backed up, but within Exchange, we will actually delete that attachment to free up space out of a user's mailbox. Now we replace it with a pointer or a stub file. So from an end user perspective, they still can search for that file, that attachment. And once they click on that link, a backup job restores automatically in the background. And within seconds, that attachment is back down into Exchange and the user didn't even know the difference. So a really great way to save space from the Exchange perspective. We're seeing SharePoint really consuming a lot of a company's space from Microsoft 365. And via our archiving capabilities, we give you the ability to grab the data that is being dumped into SharePoint now. We're seeing it as a big dumping ground, and a lot of data is residing there. But admins might not need to keep everything. The users might not need to keep everything there. They've just thrown it in once. So we could turn on the archiving capability. Again, same philosophy as we do for Exchange and OneDrive. If it meets this criteria after the backup occurs, we can then purge the data out of your live production environment and free up space. CrashPlan also offers self-service capabilities. So not all requests need to run through an IT administrator. If you wanted to give access to an end user to log in to this console and do their own restores or download their own messages, you would do that here. But again, it's not an all or nothing. If you wanted a subset of your users to be able to have self-service capabilities, no problem. We would have a self-service policy, and those certain individuals would be aligned to that policy. And if we enable legal hold over here in the advanced view, that will have a hierarchy in the policy versus the general settings. Meaning, in general, if you only retain the data for a year and you are excluding the deleted items folder, if we enable legal hold, the next backup will actually retain the data indefinitely, and it'll grab every folder and location that we can within Exchange. Now, policies and all of the settings in here are really driven by our role-based access control. So the users are all aligned under the user management. You can have end users that have self-service capabilities, as we talked about within the policies. You could also define specific admins. We could even delegate admins and really customize who could see what. There might be a scenario where you want your SharePoint admin to be able to come in and manage the environment, but you don't want the SharePoint admin to have permissions to do any Exchange restores or modify any Exchange policies. So with our delegated administrator type, we could define which policies they have access to. So very flexible and customizable. Something really nice within CrashPlan is that we offer some in-depth content indexing or search capabilities. This is enabled by default for all of our users at no additional charge. What happens is, yes, we're going to grab the traditional metadata from an email perspective, who the message is coming from and the timestamp. But take it a step further, we're going to index that information, dive into the message, dive into the attachments, looking for keywords to be able to search more specific for any type of items that may or may not be needed. From an administrator perspective, if I wanted to go through and grab a email, I would click on Manage Assets, Microsoft Exchange, find the mailbox, go into the specific location where the file resides. Now, if I know that file is deleted, I can actually toggle on show only deleted items. That helps with my search a little quicker. And now I see all the files in my inbox. We mentioned that CrashPlan does search and indexing of the data. So really quick, I'm able to see the files without having to restore and guess and see if that's how we go about it. Yes, I could search if I know exactly where the message or email is, but there's a chance that I might not know exactly where that email or file is. That's where we have this really powerful in-depth search at the top. So if I'm looking for a specific email that is in my mailbox, I know that email has the word survey in it. So really quick, I'm able to see all the messages in my mailbox that have the word survey. See, there's 54 search results that came up. Let me narrow that down a little more. Maybe I know that that message came from someone named Jared. So I could expand these search capabilities, type in Jared, click search. And really quick, we just narrow the results down to 13. So now these are messages that have the word survey in it, as well as coming from Jared. Really quick, really powerful way to be able to search for data in the environment. I'm going to walk you through how an IT administrator will do a quick restore of CrashPlan data. To find the data, we go to Manage Assets, and depending on which workload we are looking for, we would choose the specific workload at the top. I'm going to do a restore of SharePoint data. So first, actually, I'm going to toggle over to my SharePoint environment where I have some files that are live and in production. I'm going to go into this folder called CrashPlan one-pagers, and we're going to find this one file called backup, CrashPlan backup architecture. Let's select this file and delete it. Are you sure you want to delete this file? Delete. Okay, file is deleted. Well, not 100%. What happens now is it sits in SharePoint's recycle bin. And depending on the policy, after it reaches the SharePoint policy, which I believe by default is around 90 days, after it reaches that 90-day period, the recycle bin gets wiped out, and end users, IT admins do not have the capability to restore any files. I'm going to speed up the process and delete this file from the recycle bin. Are we sure we want to delete? Yes. All right, so we see it's not in the recycle bin anymore. And if we go back into the one-pagers, architecture file is not there. Time to do a restore. Let's jump into the SharePoint site, go into my shared documents, the one-pagers, and grab the architecture file. Now, if I was concerned about a specific version of the file, if I had multiple versions of the file, I could see that here. I could also do a quick preview of the file if I wanted to just double check and see if that was the file that I'm looking for. A couple options we get for the restore is downloading the file. Download brings it right through this browser, not going back into the SharePoint environment. But typically we want to do a restore. And we give you some capabilities to restore that file in place, meaning this file was in the site solution consultants in the location of CrashPlan one-pagers. And I'm going to restore that file directly back in place there. But CrashPlan also gives you the ability to restore the file out of place or to a different location. So we could bring it to a different site or a different path within the SharePoint site. But for the sake of this restore, I'm going to restore that file in place. I clicked restore, and what happens now is we are searching the backup. We're looking, grabbing all the different chunks of the file and initiating that restore job. We could see the progress of the restore job. Oh, we could see the progress of it, but it looks like it's already done. Let's go back into SharePoint. Let's refresh and look at that. Within a couple seconds, the file came right back into SharePoint. That's how simple it is to drill through, search for your files, whether it's Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and pull the data right back into any of those production workloads. I appreciate you spending some time with me today to look at CrashPlan's high-level overview of our features and functionalities. If you'd like a personalized demo, please reach out to us at crashplan.com/demo, and we'd be happy to cater a specific demo for your specific needs.